So, before we start today's episode, I want to take a minute to talk about what's going on in the world right now. I'm sure I don't have to tell you, I'm, of course, talking about the global protests that started with the killing of George Floyd, and then we have the ongoing police retaliation that's been happening in response. Unfortunately, those things are nothing new, but I feel like we've been seeing this all on a scale that I know I've never seen before in my lifetime. And I think it's been good to see so many people getting out there and bravely putting themselves out there to take a stand. But it's also just been sickening to watch. Not just the violence from the police response, but also the way that they've just been flaunting their complete lack of accountability. The masks are off at this point. When you get, officers attacking and arresting reporters on camera, on live TV, it's kind of terrifying. In addition to, the usual, beating and shooting and gassing, it's been really difficult to watch and to process. Needless to say, anime and doing a podcast have not been a priority in my mind at all this past week, as I'm sure it has for everybody. And I have honestly been on the fence about doing an episode at all of the podcast this week for our regularly scheduled episode. But I think there are two reasons that we decided to go ahead with it. One is that, we wanted to make our own statement in support of the protests. The podcast is our furthest reaching platform at this point, so that seemed like the best option to me to say something. So, just in case there's any question at this point, we are in support of the protesters. We support the Black Lives Matter movement and all the changes that are being called for. That's, not just ending the police brutality, but also changing the systems in place that are supporting it. Whether that's the racism, white supremacy, all this disgusting bootlicking fascism, all these things that have been baked into how our country operates since day one, and they're kind of all just coming to the spotlight again over the past couple of years, and all of it's got to go. So, I don't really know if this is the appropriate place to get more into detail or nuance on any of that. But, just so, we can say where we stand on it. And I would just, say a few other things to ask everyone is, just please try and stay informed about what's happening, why these issues are important. Listen to the primary sources, the marginalized people that are affected the most. Listen to what they're telling us. From there, figure out what you can do in your circumstances. I don't know what that is. Could be your time or money, whatever you can give. Just figure it out and do it. And, finally, at the end of the day, once we've done what we can, just, try and find time to take care of yourself. And, I hope that doesn't sound patronizing coming from somebody who has the privilege to take a break if I have to. But, just think of it as, we need to, at some point, you got to recharge the batteries and get ready to fight another day. So that's kind of the second reason why I think we decided to go ahead with doing an episode is, this is something that we do for fun, that we enjoy doing, and, we want to take a break. And, more importantly, we hope that for anybody listening, if, us telling bad jokes about cartoons for 90 minutes helps you take a break in any way as well, then, mission accomplished. And we can get back and start up the fight again tomorrow. So, that's pretty much all I had to say. I don't know if you all had anything you wanted to add before we go ahead with the episode.
That was really well put, Jill. I think you really covered your bases there in your classic charismatic, diplomatic way. And I think that's important. I think that, again, like to all the people out there that are out in the streets or donating, like, keep at it, man. I mean, keep at it, keep fighting, because, hey, it was people making their voices heard that got all 4 of the cops involved charged, but charged doesn't mean anything. Like, that just means they're going to court. Like we need to keep making noise until they receive the judgment that they deserve. Like, this is only the beginning, right? Like,
there's still a lot of fight left to go.
There is still a lot of fight left to do. And, like, Jel, since you said, like, all the good, nice stuff, now I get to say the fiery shit. So, okay, I'm not as angry as I was before about all this. I've taken some time to cool off, but I'll just say, if you're on the fences about all of this, or if you look at the widespread and blatant brutality that is being committed by the authorities across the country, and you find their actions to be necessary, defensible, or God forbid, acceptable, I need you to re-examine your prejudices. I need you to take a real hard look at why you think that rioting and destruction of property is considered a worse sin than the systematic murder of people of color in this country. And if you truly believe that everyone in this country should be entitled to the same rights and liberties, then why do you support an institution that so obviously does not? Because at the end of the day, if you think law and order supersede the liberty and basic dignity of marginalized groups in this country, then maybe you don't. And maybe you need to take a closer look. And that's all I got, so.
Agreed.
Yep.
Definitely.
Agreed.
If, that's about all we got to say on that for now. And, I guess we'll try and get into doing an episode here.
Start the music.
Yep.
We'll start the music.
Yokoso todo hajimemashite.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I think this is we're getting toward the end of the spring season here. I think this is the last time we're going to talk about these shows before the final impressions. We'll have like our season preview next week, but it's all coming down to the wire here.
Everything being delayed has completely destroyed my sense of time of how long the season has been.
We even had a new show starting, which we'll talk about.
Right.
Seasons. What's that? Anime just comes out whenever it feels like now.
Yeah, thanks Netflix.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but so this is our last chance to make any final wild speculation or any thoughts before shows start wrapping up. So let's do it. Just by way of introduction, I'm Jel. I am joined as always by Iro.
Still here, not dead yet.
I'm joined by G.
What's good, everyone?
And we are joined again this week by Artemis.
Hey, I am glad to be here.
Yes, and we are happy to have you. All right, so like I said, this is our last chance to go over these shows before they end. But before we get into our regularly scheduled shows, we wanted to talk about a couple other things. One of them, as we mentioned, was a new show that debuted this week on Netflix. Thanks Netflix for your complete disregard of anime season timing. But did they drop the whole show or just a couple episodes?
So they dropped the episodes 1 through 5.
Okay.
My assumption based on seeing episode 2 is that this show contains multiple arcs, and it seems as though they dropped the first arc at once.
Really?
Okay.
My assumption was more they're just doing a B&A of just, well, we're just releasing the first half.
There's
whatever.
that too, but they've announced 3 batches so far.
I
Okay.
see.
So before we get too deep into it, the show we're talking about is The Great Pretender.
Just
Actually-
Great Pretender.
Or Great Pretender.
I know. It's because the original Freddie Mercury song is The Great Pretender.
Okay.
Well, it's not
Yes.
even an original Freddie Mercury song, but okay.
Fucking. Freddie made it his, okay?
You all know what I'm talking about. So other than the association with Freddie Mercury, I do not know anything about this, but you all have watched it and seem to have a pretty high opinion of it.
It's now the best show of the season.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
So what's the premise on this one?
Well, first of all, you should
there's-
definitely hear the My Anime List premise if you
Oh,
have
you
not
want-
seen it already.
I was gonna say, do you have it on? Do you have it on?
Yeah,
ready
yeah,
to
I
go?
do. Here we go. So here's all you need to know. Only bads, caps lock, are our targets. Trick you, deceive you, cheat all fortunes of you. You can hear our stories in LA, Singapore, London, Shanghai, and Tokyo. Why? Our con game, caps lock, stage is the whole world.
Oh,
it.
that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
That should
So
just
now
be-
that you know everything you need to know about what this anime is about,
It should just be surrounding the logo, honestly. Like,
Oh, that would be so good. Yeah, if
Like
that
the
if
title
that's
card.
yeah, if that's description was like the English subtitle of the show, like
be even
some real
better.
like no guns life shit.
yes.
Just
But yes,
But,
it's like a heist / con man type show. Basically.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
you have the main character who's a Japanese guy who kind of gets wrapped up in a con in Los Angeles with a Frenchman and his goons, and gets in over his head, but he's the best con man in Japan, so you just gotta roll with it.
right. Like the important thing to mention here is that the main character is himself a con man, but he gets
Yes.
conned by bigger cons, and the show seems to be building up toward to an escalation of their increasingly ballsier, larger cons on each other and their marks.
What time period is this? Is this modern day or?
It seems like it's modern day.
at
There
one
was
point
there was
there
the
was
line,
a 90s.
right? The line where the dude said, "Welcome to the '90s."
Oh, you know what,
/
that
"Welcome
is-
to the Heisei."
Right, that is true. So I guess the implication is
Also, the way it was so easy for him to go on an international flight
right
tells
yeah.
me
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
pre 9/11.
Also, I take that back. I said modern day, but that's because to me the 90s weren't that long ago. But that was
Yeah.
like
20 years ago.
So actually,
Well, I
no,
mean,
not
still-
modern day.
I would still count that
The
as
modern era.
but not present day.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's a good way to
But-
put it.
Yeah, but
Heisei.
for all other intents and purposes, it seems fairly present day still. Like there's no kind of other callbacks
Right.
that I saw.
Nobody has whipped out a smartphone, which I feel
Yeah.
like is the
That's true.
telltale.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still kind of waiting for it to lean more into the 90s-ness, but for now, yes. So, yeah. So basically, I think it was really important to watch the first 2 episodes of Great Pretender because I think they do a really good job of immediately establishing the scope and ambitions of the show, actually. Because the first episode, like many anime, is very impressive, right? It has spectacle, it has aesthetic, it has snappy, effective writing, it sets up its premise extremely well. And it's really good. Definitely not taken away from that. Like the characters, the 3 main characters kind of already have an interesting dynamic. The show looks fantastic. Like
It's with studio.
yeah, so like for those of you who are watching Kakushigoto, you might actually notice that show and Great Pretender are both kind of evoking the city pop album art style.
Nice.
The the plastic loves and the Tatsuru Yamashitas, that kind of like very like saturated kind of pastel look with the thin outlines.
It's very bright, very pop, very
yeah. And I think it's a really good art style to pick, especially because it is. I mean, it's 90s, and City Pop's kind of prime time was more the 80s, but it does a good job of like giving the whole show like a little bit of a vintage look. It just feels slightly different from, all the other anime that's airing right now.
While still being, like, very kind of present, high quality.
Yeah, totally.
Also, I feel like, just for me at least, Sadamoto character designs evoke the 90s.
Right, I think that's another thing important to mention. Yes, it is Sadamoto of,
Evangelion, Fooly Cooly.
Gainax fame, Gainax fame in general, right?
At its most kind of... I want to say the characters have kind of jagged faces almost, like they're very sharp. Yeah.
So does it also look like it's kind of from the 90s, or?
No,
I wouldn't actually say, no.
Okay.
Yeah, as...
I literally have seen nothing of
It's,
about
yeah.
this, so.
You're in for a treat. I think it does what a lot of anime fail to do, in that it makes an immediate impact. It doesn't wait it doesn't hold its punches and wait to deliver them later.
Right.
It's like, now is the time. Like,
I think,
now.
That's the other thing I want to get into, especially because, Artemis, did you watch episode 2?
I did, yep.
Okay, so we don't want to spoil Gel here, but the three of us then kind of know what I'm about to get into here. Is that episode 1 is a really good first impression. Mm-hmm. Episode 2, I think, is what sold me on the show.
Episode 2, it's even stronger.
Oh yeah, totally. It's like, I think the thing that really grabbed me with episode 2 is like how efficient the pacing is. Like, I won't get into spoilers, but episode 1 has a very specific tone, right? It's very like, you'll watch it and you'll immediately understand, oh, it's going to be that kind of anime. But then episode 2 kind of hits you with like a very different kind of tone, especially at the start. That is like, I was not ready for I was not ready for the first half of episode 2. I was like, oh shit, like they're getting kind of real here, actually. And they do it super effectively. Like, I think they do a good job of kind of explaining and showing the main character's backstory in like under 10 minutes more effectively than some anime do in an entire series. Like,
this is maybe not necessarily an apt comparison, but reminded of how, saying like Planet With, they could do a thing and it's like 6 or 7 minutes for this character, and you understand that character, and then we can move on to the things that are actually going on.
Right, and I think it's. I mean, Iro, you're the one who brought this up, right? Like, the writer who worked on Great Pretender comes from a film background, right?
Yeah, he mostly has done live action film.
And I kind of got that vibe once you told me that, because film pacing is very different from TV pacing, obviously, right? Like, in a TV show, you can revisit a character's backstory multiple times across the season. But in movies, when you tend to have the moment that is like, okay, here's where we give the character's backstory, you have to do it pretty quick, right? Like, it's like...
How you punch them in the face in 5 minutes and make them remember.
Right, because when you got 90 minutes to work with, 10 minutes is a fairly sizable portion already. So you have to be efficient with how, with the time you have. And I kind of saw that with the first half of episode 2. And then I think, the second half of episode 2 kind of reinforces like the really strong parts of episode 1. Like, slight spoilers, but I'll try to keep it vague. But I think, I don't know about you two, but at least for me, the initial vibe I was getting was, okay, like, there's gonna be one of those shows where like the main character is kind of like the hapless goof who gets dragged along on all these crazy plans.
Right.
Yeah, he's smart, but not as smart as he wants to be or as he thinks he is, and then consequently,
by the end of the second episode, he's able to like turn the tables on the other guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that immediately makes for a much more interesting character dynamic. Like, I'm not against like a dynamic that's like, oh, one guy's clearly in control and the other guy's just kind of getting dragged along for the ride. I mean, there's a lot of great movies about that basic premise. Harold and Kumar sure went to White Castle. But, like, I think that there's a potentially much more interesting premise where the two main con men are, if not equals, then at least in the same weight class.
And possibly constantly battling for like supremacy as far as where this goes.
I think that's going to be a lot more interesting. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that I'm putting my whole ass out
Anime
here.
LA? Is that where we're going?
Oh, sure. We could talk about Anime LA. I think that their portrayal of Anime LA was very entertaining. Depressingly more... despite it being full of mafiosos and drug dealers, still seemed more appealing than real LA. So that really tells you everything.
I was gonna ask you guys as a non-US person how
shitty traffic in
how
and out
close to
burger
the mark
sounds right to
does it
me.
get?
Yeah, they nailed the fundamental parts. Yeah, shitty traffic, in and out, and crappy directors.
Corrupt directors and producers and models and
filth.
Right, paying off the LAPD. It's all there. Especially this 90s LA we're talking about. But, look, like I said, I put my whole ass out there, but I'm just going to make it quick.
Now I understand.
Alright, so one of the three characters, the one we haven't mentioned, is Abby. She is... I think she's Latina, but don't quote me on that yet. But she is the one American of the trio, I guess, or at least implied to have grown up in America. And I guess she's kind of like the muscle of the group, or at least that's kind of the vibe they're given so far. And look, she fucking kicked the shit out of that guy, all right?
Man, look, any Los Angelino knows the cream.
Oh, of course, yes. And don't forget her cocaine trip. But very physically adept there. But look, I'm not going to be a lecher, so I'll just say Sadamoto is a really good character designer. Jel, you'll understand once
I can already figure out where you're going there, G.
Look, I mean, even I understand.
All right, then we could just leave it at that.
Oh, and before we move on, like also the music, and not just the ending, but the whole soundtrack deserves a shout out. I think too. It's really great, jazzy, like smooth. I don't know, just.
It's definitely in that kind of smooth jazz realm. It's definitely taking inspiration from like con art film, big heist film kind of soundtracks and vibes. Got a little bit of hip hop in there too. I wish the hip hop that was there was a little more 90s inspired, but you live with what you can get. Actually, it is the 90s. Fuck, like NWA would be, man. Yeah, NWA. I hope man. I hope Ice Cube makes a cameo in this
anime Ice Cube.
Yeah,
that'd be great. But the opening reminded me of oh my god, not Da-Da-Da-Da. What's the one before that? The name is slipping my memory.
What show?
It's the jazz opening, like that's instrumental on a train, and like by the same creators as Durara.
Oh, okay.
Bakano.
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah, on the train. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, and of course, yes, shout-outs to the ED, which I cannot believe it. I didn't know about this, so
I'm so glad I got to see you experience that in real time.
It was the most delightful surprise in the world, but yes, they actually got Freddie Mercury's The Great
I wonder how much they had to pay for that, because normally they just don't bother, they just sort of,
I mean...
cannot afford, so...
Honestly, I was surprised that Eero told me that...
It's like the first anime with the Freddie Mercury song.
Yeah, I was actually a little surprised, because... Freddie's pretty popular in Japan.
It's not the first anime to reference Fred. Do you remember Cromartie High School?
Yeah,
I sure do.
Have a song.
Yeah. I meant license an actual song from him.
Yeah.
I was surprised that hadn't happened before. I was like, surely at least one anime out there did, but I guess not. But
my question was, because this is coming out on Netflix Japan. It's obviously not out internationally. Are they going to pay out for?
Oh, dude, no!
It's totally up in the air.
They have not in the past historically done that.
I mean, if Evangelion couldn't afford to fly me to the moon, then
I don't.
Do they
think
not
it's
have
happening.
that?
Well, Evangelion was famously running on a very low budget, so.
Did the Netflix version not have "Fly Me to the Moon"?
No.
Wow! Holy shit!
Also, well, to be fair, Evangelion also had, like, what, 26 versions of Flight of the
Right,
Eagles?
it's more complicated
Dub
than-
had it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, did
Yeah.
it? Damn, huh?
Yeah.
They did.
I remember
yeah, they
Eden
did.
of the East licensed the Oasis track for one episode.
Right, they could only get it for one episode.
Speed Grapher, they did not even try to license
yeah.
Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Which was
It's-
so appropriate.
Right. I mean,
I guess it's a question of, is it harder because with the Evangelion it's not licensing the song "Fly Me to the Moon," it's licensing the versions from the
Right,
Japanese
but-
record companies. And
I mean, frankly,
historically they don't like to play ball, so maybe that's
Yeah.
more
Maybe.
I think
Yeah.
realistically, it's just that Netflix won't care. Like,
That's true,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, I'll put it this way. I don't think I can't believe it would be prohibitively expensive to get a song for an opening sequence, but I just don't think Netflix cares enough. Like,
it's not going to be
right.
Right,
when you
like-
look at the return on investment math, it's not going to
Yeah.
be worth it to them, right?
like they just don't care about their anime division enough to go the
Oh,
extra mile.
It would be so good if they just made up like a fake song that sounded kind of like it, but,
Get a
Not
cover
quite
of
the
it or
same.
something.
or like
A cover
same
of a
chords-
cover.
same chords or something, but change the words a little
God.
bit, or I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, as usual, like, I will take any opportunity to give a shout out. It barely has anything to do with the anime, but the ED has a bunch of cats in it.
Hell yes.
And so, shout out to all the pictures that exist of Freddie Mercury with his cats.
Very good.
They're all gold. You will never have half the charisma Freddie Mercury does posing with his cats. It's impossible to look as good as he does, just double fisting his cats.
Well, that's the last straw there. I have to watch it.
You do. Everyone should try this. It's really good.
I think it's definitely the one. It's definitely the one to watch of the upcoming season.
Yeah, was this count as?
I don't even know. I think this counts as next season, but
Sure.
Because it probably won't end.
It's gonna be at least. It's at least like
It's like 23
17 or 18
episodes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No,
it's not
in
going to
its
end
20s, yeah.
in the next month, right? So,
No.
all right. So I will definitely check that out, and maybe we can talk about that. I don't know. Well, not next time, but another time. Okay. So, other thing I wanted to catch up on briefly was my next life as a villainess. All routes lead to
Yep.
doom.
I've been watching this as well.
Yes, Ira and I have both been watching it. We have not been talking about it
It
because
continues to be totally inoffensive.
well, for some reason, the past 3 or 4 episodes they went to like anime original content.
Right, that's what I heard.
I don't know how like hard up for like source material they are on that, or why
My
they chose to do
understanding
that.
is that the stopping point would have been like episode 10. So,
Okay, because it does seem like they're going into a good stopping point now, but
Right.
the yes, for whatever reason, it's been all filler, which has been fine. I mean, this show is basically filler anyway, but filler
Yeah.
of a filler show is not doesn't give us a lot to talk about from week to
Right.
week.
It's
It's
repeating the
mostly
same
just
joke.
been like,
yeah.
what did we do on our summer vacation? You know, what awkward positions can we put everybody in to make our main character, you know,
Be nice to everyone.
be nice to them and everybody fall in love with her. Which doesn't sound that great when I say it out loud, but trust me, it's fun.
At least there
It's
are
fun.
no slaves.
there's no slavery or anything. It's just people being nice to each other.
I don't
for the
know.
most
Still
part.
sounds like there's landed aristocracy.
There's
So,
that.
There is that, and actually, in episode 9, or I think it's 9, like there's a whole half an episode about her maid.
That's
or something.
right.
So there's a little bit of benevolent slavery going on there. But you know, I wouldn't go as far as saying that. That's probably unfair. But yeah, there is, yes, there's still aristocracy in this world. But anyway, point is, by episode 10, this week's episode, we've gotten back to what I'm assuming is the actual
The real
source
plot.
material stuff. And so just to refresh everybody's memory, the whole premise of the show was that this girl was the villainess in an Otome game, or she's reborn into an Otome game where she's the villainess and she's
Right.
trying to be nice to reverse her fortunes.
In the game, in every route where the heroine gets with someone, like, because she's the bully, she, like, inevitably dies or is banished or...
Yeah, she's either put to death or exiled in every single route. So she's been trying, knowing how the game goes since she was a child, she's been trying to, like, reverse her fortune by, like, messing up how the game works.
So, quick aside, I found out there's a spin-off where she only reincarnates as, like, once she's a teenager and has already started bullying the girl. Like,
that seems...
And I'm like, that seems more interesting.
Huh, yeah.
Is it more interesting, or is it just unnecessary?
I don't know,
no,
but I was like,
I gotta
okay.
be honest. I think that's a more interesting premise, alright?
Right, it's like
where she's got to patch up.
It's like she's in the
the
middle
damage.
of bullying her and then falls over and hits her head and gains all the memories and is like, oh fuck.
Look, as someone who, recently played a critically acclaimed video game where you wake up with no recollection of the horrific acts that you have committed and inflicted on others, I'm just gonna say that can be a pretty interesting premise sometimes.
Well, anyway, the spin-off aside, they reveal this week that with all her planning over the past 10 years, she forgot about the secret route of the game.
Right. The hidden
where
character.
which the hidden character, which that's a very common thing in visual novels.
Yes.
It made me think of I wish I could remember the name of the
Tokimeki
game, but I remember
Memorial,
I'm telling you guys about the one I was playing where, like, to get the secret ending you had to jump off the roof and you had a
God,
50%
right.
chance. You had a 50% chance of
kiss or
triggering.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though the petals fall.
I couldn't help but think of that on this one. But
God damn
yes, so she realizes there's a secret route that she had not been planning for, and in this route, if she fails the route, she lives, but everybody else dies. So
no.
they've kind of ratcheted up the tension out of nowhere.
I feel like
episode 10.
the scene where she still gets confronted for bullying, but everyone's like, she couldn't have possibly bullied this. She's too stupid.
Right.
It's like the logical conclusion.
Everyone's like, no, she wouldn't have bullied us. She's too dumb to figure that out.
How could this idiot possibly plan this intricate bullying?
Right, but it's a scene that shouldn't have happened based on her planning, and then she
Right.
realized that, oh, hey, I missed this other route, and now it's, like, all serious now. But, well, by this show's
Quote-unquote
standards.
serious.
So yeah, it's interesting to see the show actually try and do something for the last couple of episodes. I was kind of wondering how they were going to... I figured there had to be some kind of final story
boss.
blip or something, arc or something, final boss at the end.
I assume
and-
she will be nice to this guy, and he will fall in love with her as well, and everything will
Right.
be happy.
Yes, because every man, woman, animal, plant, and everything in the show has fallen in love with her so far. But, like, I was not expecting how super gay the show actually gets, but that's been entertaining. My favorite one was when she's like, "Oh, we should do girl talk and talk about who we like. Hey, Maria, who do you like?" And she's like, "I love you very much, Klara." They're just like, there's no filter on it or anything. It's pretty funny, but yeah. Anyway, so again, I just wanted to reinforce that the show still exists and it's actually still pretty good.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's not
yes.
groundbreaking or anything.
I mean, you're still watching it, Iroh, which I think is in a way a tacit endorsement.
Oh, I don't know. There are some shows
I've
that
watched
Eero
some
is still
trash.
watching.
I just love that you guys are like, well, Iroh's still watching it, and he's now our benchmark for, like, what is acceptable.
Yes.
Just as planned.
Hey, we've been doing this a long time. We know how this all works. But yeah. So yeah, that show still fun. Let's move along then to Kakushigoto.
Heartfelt comedy hour.
Yes, we have a couple more comedies to knock out here. I do feel like with Kakushigoto 9 and 10, we were kind of getting back
Well,
to...
it also bears mentioning that it was announced the manga's ending.
Yes, I was going to get to
we
that.
were
Okay.
gonna, yeah.
Yeah. So 9 and 10, I feel like kind of got back to more comedy, but also they started dropping actual details of what may have happened to.
What the fuck happened to Kakashi Sensei? Did he get lost at sea?
Right? Like, was he on his finally vacation to like Hawaii and then his plane crashed?
Yeah.
Or, like,
is that where this is going? Is that the foreshadowing of the vacation episode? Is I'm finally gonna go to Hawaii and then.
Yeah. So just to cover. 9 and 10 are basically like the Christmas and New Year's episode, and they're fine. The content's fine.
Yeah,
but we want baseless speculation here. So, in 9, when they do their little flash forward at the end of the episode, it's got like his assistant, who's now working at a bookstore or something, and somebody buys a book on manga artists that have disappeared.
Weirdly specific book, I have to say.
Look, if anyone would have such a book, it would be Japan. Like, 50 of the greatest something that have vanished during the 90s. Like, they get weirdly
between
specific.
the period of 1983
right.
and
I was say, like,
1997
is there
something.
even any like real world basis in this? Like, is there a real mangaka that just like went missing and or just stopped working like out of nowhere? I mean,
I don't know, but
Probably,
but they look at on the back of the book, and one of them says Kakushigoto. But to make these matters worse, his assistant is like that's a lie or something.
right? It's so ominous.
Like, what actually happened?
right. And then later there's a hint about, like, was it an airplane crash? Like, something that sounded like he went somewhere, like he was traveling somewhere.
Yeah,
And vanished from the face of the earth.
Right, the
like,
vibe I got was that he was lost at sea or something.
right? Or there was like some. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
I don't know. And then there's like also the talk of like even before he disappears, right? Like a shitty editor and one of his assistants are like talking about how he quit because he couldn't do manga anymore. And it's like, what happened? Like, did he like lose a limb or something?
Couldn't hear the laughter anymore.
Yeah, I was like, well, and the thing is that because of this show, again, I keep saying it every week, but because of this show, it's like I cannot tell. Like, are they gonna go for something like truly fucked up and tragic, or is this just like the biggest build up to like the most fucked up black comedy bit that I've ever seen in anime? Right, like.
Cut to Kakushigoto, like, on an island somewhere, Lord of the Flies situation. Like, I don't know.
Oh God.
Yeah. So like, this is our last chance to say what we think's gonna happen. So what do you guys think?
Well, there goes my these last 2 episodes. Kind of puts a bullet in my he's in jail theory. So,
I mean, is it gonna be like? I feel like it's got to be tied to him not wanting his daughter to learn about his job or something.
Right, but it's like, what are the possible explanations, right? Like, it can't be just like he abandoned her, because he would never do that.
Right.
So, like, even the shame of being outed as a mangaka wouldn't make him, like, skip town on her, but, like, it's one of those, like, I can't, it just feels like, considering his character, based on what we've seen up till now, like, he is so comically devoted to his daughter. I can't see it as like I can't see it as
a voluntary thing.
Right. I can't imagine it's a voluntary, willful abandonment. It has to be like some circumstances, conspired against him. But like,
she found out and like told him to go away, basically. But she doesn't seem especially angry either.
No, yeah, it's.
I don't know.
Like, I'm trying.
Have we ruled out that he's dead?
I don't think so. I don't think he's dead. Like, that seems to... I mean, because that was the obvious play, right? Like, based on the framing of the earlier episodes.
Maybe he faked his own death and is now doing manga under a different pen name. So Kakushigoto is dead, but actually...
Yeah, there was a bit earlier in the season where he talks about wishing he could change his pen name, so... That could be foreshadowing.
He's finally writing his dark fantasy manga that he was dreaming of back in episode.
Right. Like, this is fucked up, and I hope this isn't what it is. But is he in a coma?
That was what I was wondering a couple of episodes ago. Like if he was hospitalized and was just...
Like, that would be... He's
Yeah.
not dead, but he is, out of the picture, so to speak, right? Like,
Right.
It's...
I mean, does that also mean he's going to come back in the end?
I mean,
like,
well, that's the thing, right? Because now that we know the manga is ending, like, we were all originally wondering, like, is this gonna have to go with, like, an anime original ending, or, like, and so the journey continues ending? But now
Right.
that we know the manga's ending, I imagine the anime will probably just go with the manga ending, right?
yeah.
Like,
So the manga is actually set to release like probably a week after the anime ends or something. So obviously they're going to be planned out. Or at least
Right.
I'm assuming they're going to be planned out to end with the same ending or whatever.
So, yeah,
So something's going to happen.
yeah. I will say, we were talking about all the family drama stuff. I feel like I do want to, I still want to shout out, like, there were some good bits in these 2 episodes. I particularly liked the, again, like, just as an artist, a lot of jokes that kind of hit a little too close to home that I rather enjoyed. Like, episode 10, where he's talking about, like, yeah, I'm going to be proactive and get ahead of my deadline.
Oh, he starts procrastinating. Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck! Oh, this is too real. Like, as an artist who also, like, is seemingly incapable of kicking into high gear until a gun is pointed at my head, it definitely felt a little too real there. And the publisher party episode was pretty good, if just for more antics with the shittiest editor in the world. So
And just his poor team of assistants are so excited to be like going to this ritzy party, and it's like a glorified drinking party at a karaoke place.
Yeah,
like
they're just utterly destroyed.
Oh yeah, the editor guy definitely did a lot to make you want to kill him.
He does that every week. It's just they're finding new
yeah.
ways to make us dislike him even more.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will supposedly get our final answer by the next time we talk about it.
I'm curious. Do we want to like take a bet, each of us, on if it's just going to be like a gag ending or like a kind of a lot more serious?
I'll stick with my bet on coma.
All right. So serious shit has happened, and
Serious,
it's not gonna it's not leading up to a big joke.
Serious with the option for heartwarming.
Yeah, serious, but has the potential to be heartwarming and or comedic. If
I'm gonna say gag ending, and I kind of don't want it to be, but I feel like that's where we're headed.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say gag as well.
Okay.
So two on two there.
And by gag ending, that would almost mean he has to come back or something, right? Like
Right, or it's revealed that he's away. Yeah, like something has happened, but he's always been around, and nothing bad has happened to him.
Trapped on
per
Calypso's
se.
island for 7 years, having sex with this nymph every day, but I really just wanted to go home. Poseidon just won't let me return.
That's a different anime.
Yeah,
but
you know.
All right. So we're on the record, and we'll see how that goes. All right, let's continue our comedy power hour here, and talk about Kaguya-sama Love is War. I did not think they could top the Shoujo Vision episode that we talked about last time, and I think they might have.
Dude, fucking Kaguya-sama is the motherfucking stone cold killer in this room of anime comedies. Like, the ruthlessness it displays in its ability to escalate its comedy is unprecedented. Like, I'm so like, look, I've watched enough anime comedies to know that most anime comedies, they have, as they continue, they may continue to have good episodes or even great episodes, but like, they don't usually tend to just keep getting better. But
right, like the best comedies will usually stay at like a nice like high end of quality throughout. This is somehow this just gets better like every week.
Yeah, holy shit! Like, I mean, like, So, I will be 100% honest. I think, like, if I were to rank, like, the episodes, I think 8, like, I do love the heart attack bit. I think it's very good, but I still think it probably ranks below Shoujo Vision for me.
Yeah. It's close, though.
It's very close, because, like, I mean, just how lavishly they evoke the, like, the live-action medical drama vibe at the end.
Or even before that, they play it up like, oh no, the show is taking a serious turn, where Kaguya's, has this, heart disease or something, and like her mother died from this, anime sickness, and and this show, it's believable because like the show doesn't get like super serious, but it does have like occasional.
It has gotten serious before,
right?
And
like they could, like, this show, it's within the show's range to go into that territory,
right?
So which is part of why it worked. Yeah,
and so they build up this doctor. He's the greatest heart doctor in the world. Like, he has 1 billion PhDs, and he's on call for the prime minister and all the most important people in Japan. And
they just flipped the whole thing.
And Kaguya-sama forced him to take some time out of his day to diagnose her love sickness.
Right. So yeah, that was a pretty great gag.
Yeah.
I like, before we get to episode 9 with the Ishigami bit.
10, you mean? Or no, it was 9. You're right.
Yeah,
9,
yes. This show's actually a show episode
it's one
behind
episode
everybody.
behind.
I do like what they've been doing with the new girl Ino, with her.
Oh, dude, Ino's bits are. I mean,
she keeps misinterpreting situations and has a very overactive imagination and thinks it's like.
I mean, I think
the student council is a den of sex and whatever.
Just utter debauchery.
And lewdness.
Yes. Like, to describe it in words, it's a bit you've probably heard of before, right? The character keeps, like, misunderstanding, like, extremely compromising looking situations, but I think with Ino it really works because, like, there's a really good dynamic here of, it is a combination of her overactive imagination combined with her, like, extremely strong moralistic streak, but then also, like, the growing self-awareness of the rest of the student council that, like, it's one of those things where it's like, they're, like, in season 1 and most of season 2, this friend group all, they've known each other for a while, right? They know the dynamic, they all know the same inside jokes, except Ishigami. Like, they have an established dynamic, so it's like, when they get into weird compromising situations, that's just Tuesday. But, like, having an outsider makes them all come to realize, oh god, we're actually, like, weird, perverted fuck-ups, aren't we?
She's not 100% wrong.
No.
She might be amplifying the situation, but she's not 100% wrong.
Right. And
so those are kind of the other things that were going on these episodes, and those were pretty good. I just wanted to shout that out.
Right.
But and including, oh god, her whole segment in episode 9.
Right, so that's what I want to bring. It builds up. All those bits are fun on their own, but the fact that they were all a prelude into this amazing, again, like, as you always say, Jel, give this director a fucking raise.
Give the director a raise. Again, the director of Rakugo, for some reason, they got him.
I mean, that show was good. So.
Right, like, he keeps shifting, like, genres for each bit, and so, like, this week it's like, They go into Ino's imagination of her ideal student council, and it's like this super hackneyed, like, high school student drama where, like, the rest of the student council are, like, these, like, like, absurd caricatures of the overly powerful student council you always see in anime. And, like,
the Azuken Student Council.
Yeah, and she's like the moralistic underdog who just believes in the intrinsic good of the human race. And
they show you, well, yeah.
She tries to take them on with hard work and guts.
Yeah,
but even, like, when they're, like, randomly, like, shifting styles, like, if, like, almost like Shaft circa 2010 or something, like, I loved when they did, they just randomly turned into Peanuts characters for, like, 2 seconds.
Oh, man, that was so good. And, like...
And like, it was so random, but also like so pitch perfect for the tone of the
was
conversation.
Perfect on point, because then you totally realize, oh shit, yeah, her glasses friend totally does look like fuck.
Peppermint Patty.
Patty's friend.
Is it Lucy?
Protege.
Lucy.
No, Peppermint Patty's like glasses wearing.
The one who
friend.
keeps calling her sir.
Yes, her. It's perfect. It's like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my god, the dynamic's like basically the
Marcy.
same. Marcy, sure, yes, it's really good. It was some Fooly Cooley channeling South Park out of nowhere energy. It was
that kind of thing. It was just like perfect for the tone of the moment.
It was perfect, and
for just a couple seconds, but
and then they keep going, right? They keep going, and then they move on to the like fucking Shirogane Kaguya-sama fighting game bit for like a couple minutes.
Yes, that was good.
Great.
You know, straight with like
throw
fucking.
A Hadoken?
Well, I had like Shirogane basically doing a Rekka, but his Rekka was increasingly suggestive advances on a woman, which is it's really funny to me.
Oh yeah, she trains herself to calm herself down by touching her left cheek with her hand or something.
Right.
And then, it makes more sense when you watch it.
It's very good. It's very good. And then finally,
it was a good joke.
And then somehow this episode still had enough room to finally begin, I guess, our fucking Ishigami arc. So
yes, so you called it G, in that we were bound to have an Ishigami arc at some point here, and it did not go the direction I was expecting, but I liked it a lot.
Yeah, like I gotta
so,
go.
For a little context, Ishigami, I feel like Ishigami would be the main character in some other anime. He's like the antisocial nerd guy.
Yeah.
He looks exactly like the Persona 3 protagonist.
Does he keep his hands in his
but
pockets
he has more self-awareness and a desire to fit in than your typical character like that.
Right.
I guess. And so in his arc, he decides to join the Oendan for to, I guess, as a step toward becoming a normie.
Yeah, to break out of his shell, which is like a weirdly like, yeah, it's a weirdly like mature, like self-aware take on like the antisocial loner that like kind of gets to the core that like a lot of antisocial people aren't necessarily antisocial out of choice. Like they recognize their social failings, but you know,
right, and it's just that's the way their personality is, or they might get anxious or something, or
yeah, and it can be extremely difficult to break out of that. So he tries to be proactive about it, but then he realizes like it's way harder. It's way harder to be sociable than.
Yeah, there were some good jokes when he goes to his first meeting, and they're all talking about like getting photos for Instagram and stuff, and he has no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
But the twist happens when they decide to. So at the meeting they decide for our cheer group, let's try swapping school uniforms, so the boys and girls have to swap uniforms.
Right. And, like, it's a whole thing of, like, well, every dude in this class has at least one platonic female friend, right? And it just brought back some real horrible flashbacks to, like, high school of, you know, like, all right, everybody pair up. And it's like, oh, God, I took the class where none of my, like, regular friends are in it, and I have nobody to pair up with.
And so it turns into one of those, we talk about how we like when this show mixes the cast up, where, you know, you might have, like, Fujiwara hanging out with the president, or sometimes you get Kaguya hanging out with Ishigami, so this turns a bit into a Kaguya-Ishigami episode.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So he's got to put on a girl's uniform, and he keeps saying, I wonder if this is going to awaken anything in me. And, I don't know, G, would it be fair to say they kind of take it seriously?
I think they do. Like, like, you expect them to play it as a big joke, right? Like,
right, which would be unfortunate, because
I
don't. It would be unfortunate because you don't want to have in 2020, especially at this point, it's a boy wearing a girl's thing,
right? Or not even like. Here's the thing. I already knew Kaguya-sama was too good to rely on that kind of shit. But I was definitely expecting, you know, the typical, like, okay, Ishigami's going to go into the student council room, and then in his usual deadpan way, he's going to say something really brusque, like, I need girls' clothes, and everyone's going to get the wrong idea. But, like, instead he's, like, kind of thinking about, like, oh, like, fucking even like the female students I know all kind of treat me with like a mix of like contempt and disgust, and like I don't really have anyone I can ask for help on this, and
Right.
then it turns into a weirdly like sincere bit, actually.
Right, it's kind of sweet actually, where
Yeah.
Kaguya helps him out and she's kind of joking around with him and stuff. And I'll be interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, because, like, the end of it is, like, Shirogane's peeking in, and he's, like, getting jealous, and it's like, of course they're playing it as a joke, but, like, I don't... Where... I feel like a show like Kaguya-sama would not have a scene like this if they were not planning to build on this in some way, right? Like, is the next arc gonna be like, oh, Ishigami and Kaguya form a genuine friendship, and like Shirogane feels threatened by that, or like is like I don't know, like where is this going, right? Like even during the bit with the cheer club, right? Like you know, there are at least two characters in that club that feel like they were, you know, when you watch an anime, you can tell who's a character that's going to show up later and who's a background character. And, you know, there are at least two members of the cheer club who looked like, oh, these look like people who will be recurring characters, right? Like,
Right.
the vice captain notices Ishigami not participating in the events, and she kind of approaches him and, like, you know, again, like, pretty sincere, actually. She's like, hey, like, it's cool if you don't have line, like, just give me your email. I'll send the club notices through that. And I feel like...
Yeah, I think, you know, whether they go the route of him becoming more friends with Kaguya, or becoming more friends with the people in the cheer club, or him awakening to whatever is awakening him at the moment, it feels like they're setting up for kind of a nice ending to it.
Right, I mean,
I'm sure there will be jokes and laughs to be had, but...
Right, but it just feels like Kaguya-sama is too deliberate of a show, I think, to just do these things off the cuff, right? Like, I think...
Yeah, they don't waste any
Yeah, like...
space.
I mean, we've just talked about how the last 3 episodes have basically just been, like, one joke building on top of the next, so, like, I feel like they're probably going to do the same here, and... Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this about an anime comedy, but, like, I'm really curious, like...
right.
Where this goes.
Right. So... And that's, again, the continuity thing I keep saying, how, like, they don't let jokes just drop, like, they keep building and building, and, you know, things that happened a week or two ago are still relevant to what is happening to the plot now, like that kind of thing, that you don't ever see that in anime comedies, right?
Yeah, I feel like most anime comedies are pretty episodic, whereas, like, yeah, Kaguya-sama is one of those rare examples of, like, yeah, it's a procedural serial narrative, but it uses comedy to push the narrative forward. That's yeah, it's pretty impressive when you think about it.
Yeah, so good times all around. And, yeah, we'll have to see what happens to Ishigami. All right.
Well,
let's get this out of the way.
Speaking of good times.
No.
That would not be the correct transition here.
Oh, boy. I don't know. Do we even want to get into this? Like, I don't even know why it's on the list at this point. Like, let's be real, guys. Like...
All right, so... You did watch, listeners.
Yeah.
We did.
Yes.
We sure watched it.
Okay. Last I heard, they went to 1960s London to find Jimi Hendrix. What happened?
Mew is actually an evil demon from another dimension.
Yeah, what if it turned out...
That sounds about right.
What if it turned out that the mysterious girlfriend, Twist, turned out to be a member of the enemy alien species?
Weird.
Have you ever
Just
watched
like
a mecha
Eureka
anime?
7.
Dude, it's... I mean, fuck,
Just
man.
like
Even
Evangelion.
Dude, even Gurren Lagann does that. Like, let's be real. Like, it's fucking every mecha anime in the world. But it's just that...
Oh, now his relationship with her is gonna be the hinge that the world rests upon.
Yeah...
But don't worry, he has to spend 6 months in this illusory farm to understand.
God, what the hell is... Yeah, what the...
That sounds like one of the worst possible ways they could have taken the show.
Dude, this show is so, like, it's just, I tell this to Eero every week we watch another episode. I'm like, I wish GDC existed for anime. For those unfamiliar, GDC is a Games Developer Conference, which is an annual convention that is held by the gaming industry for game developers, not like fans, to kind of basically discuss and talk shop about, like, you know, techniques and that sort of stuff, industry stuff.
We want to see the listeners' post-mortem of, like, what the fuck were they thinking?
I need the tell-all interview that is just like, what the fuck happened to this show? Was this the intent? Like, is this how the show started?
Were there creative differences?
Right, like, it's just like, it's so incomprehensible. Like, it's not incomprehensible in just like this is the work of an incompetent writer. It's like incomprehensible in the way of, like, there's no rhyme or reason to anything anymore.
Why did you choose to do this?
Right, like,
and why should we care about any of it?
Right, it's completely illogical. Like, it's not again, we keep saying it's not illogical in that, like, episodic space dandy way. It's illogical in, like, it literally doesn't make sense. Like, look, I'm not gonna act like writing is easy, but I feel like I need to know what happened here, because, like, this feels like it goes beyond, like, incompetence into, like, were people just not talking to each other during this project or something? like were people, like, locked in separate rooms in individual cells?
Get 12 writers, everybody go in a room and write an episode.
Right. Like, was it like 12 writers and, like, you know, each one was just handed a prompt, but was given no information about what happened before and after their episode, and they just, like, wrote whatever? Like, it's...
Oh, well, her being a demon girl sounds like an episode 10 plot twist. Let's put that at the end.
Sure does.
And the worst thing, like, the worst sin the show commits isn't even that it's completely illogical and incomprehensible, but that it still somehow manages to be boring.
Yep.
And I don't know because at least, like, we've all seen some weird shows before that didn't make much sense, but at least they were interesting to watch.
Right.
In one way or another. This is not. It's mind-bogglingly dull.
You don't want to watch this kid give birth to a calf, help a cow give birth, because that has to do with our music mech stuff.
You wanna see a kid embrace the legendary artifact, the neon LED ridden magical phonograph that just floats in the middle of an abandoned church.
Right. We fucking God Christ.
I'm dumbfounded. I'm actually dumbfounded as to how this happened.
Right, because, like, even the shows that do purposely lean into, like, this kind of, like, surrealistic imagery, like, of course, Evangelion, or hell, even, like, you know, honestly, I feel like the actual...
Yeah.
What were we gonna say here?
It's like Flip Flappers or something.
Sure, or, like, hell, like, even the premise of this of the latest episode is basically, like, you know, kind of, you know, again, I'm not saying Gurren Lagann invented it, but, like, it is that episode, right? The one where the hero gets trapped in an illusory world and is shown, you know,
well, he could do instead, like, the peaceful life they could lead.
Right, it's like, at least those usually feel thematically coherent with the narrative, because you know the characters, and thus the illusory world serves to be, like, a dark mirror to their deepest desires, right? Like, to tempt them. But we don't really know Echo that well. Like, we know he likes music, or he likes players, and he likes Mew, but, like, that's it.
I mean, none of the characters are especially in depth, and I probably should have said this, like, I think it was last time, or maybe I wasn't even on the podcast last time, but, like, the best episode was the one that did not involve our main characters.
The one with, like,
by
the street
far
punks.
the best episode.
Yeah, I mean, because it was even if it wasn't, like, groundbreaking, it was a solid self-contained narrative. Like, you know, it had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Had characters who wanted things and tried to get those things, and then
and it had character development. It had some character development within that episode, whereby the characters started at A and ended at B, and here's how that journey progressed, and it makes sense.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's just confusing. I mean, that's really what it is. Like, it's just
overlaid with constant whining, which at this point is getting pretty annoying. Like,
But-
every time
Yeah.
Echo says anything, it's in a whiny voice. Like, it's
I mean, look, I'll be real here. Whiny protagonists are a hallmark of the mecha genre, but my personal rule is a mecha protagonist has to stop being whiny by the 1/3 mark.
Well, he hasn't even really gotten that much of a reason to whine. Also, like, at least whiny protect. At least Shinji had a reason. You know, like, his life was legitimately fucked up. Shit happened.
Sure.
Right.
Echo's just wandering around going, "Oh, this sucks. Why me?" Like,
But guys,
Stop.
we upgraded the Teen Spirit to Purple Haze. Music!
Oh my god, don't even
music
get me
reference.
started on the hackneyed shitty music references that don't mean anything, have no thematic like relevance. Right, I mean even that, right, like, oh, they upgraded Teen Spirit to Purple Haze. It's like, wait, you upgrade, wait, so Nirvana upgrades into Jimi Hendrix? Like, what are you implying here? Like, those, like...
Doesn't make any sense.
Right, like, at least
it's just
if it
like
was-
picking a name out of a hat.
Exactly, right? Like,
Yeah.
at least if it was like, I don't know, man, at least if it was like,
See, that's the biggest sin to me. At least get your music references in order. I
Right,
mean,
like-
and then just the icing on the cake, lest we forget that for a show that is about music, like the one thematic similarity the show has, even if it makes no sense, the one thematic similarity it has over every episode is that the music isn't good.
no, soundtrack's not that great. Like,
It's just a normal sound. Like, there's nothing unique, exciting. Like, it's just there. It's fine.
like, yeah,
Whatever.
like in a year with a lot of really good soundtracks, right? Like, remember, this is the year of the Dorohedoro EDs. This is the year of Do It Like a Samurai.
The
Like,
year of The Great Pretender.
right. Like, the Great Pretender has a better use of music than any moment in Listeners.
And that's even with every ending being different too. So it's not like they didn't have a chance to show their
Right.
stuff.
Like, fuck, man. Like, even if you didn't like its sense of humor or its bad animation, one of the few things that is like unanimously praised about Trigger's Ninja Slayer is that all
Satellite.
the EDs are hella good.
oh yeah, they had some fantastic musical choices for their EDs.
Yeah, and Trigger dug deep for the Ninja Slayer EDs. They like got all these like weird like Japanese indie grunge bands for all their EDs, and that was
they got stuff I would listen to in real life and not just anime
exactly
music.
like whereas like Listeners is also trying to do the whole like, oh, we got a unique ED every episode, but
No, they don't. It's
right, none of them stand out. Like if you said,
not a
hey,
single one has been like, I don't hate them, but like I don't.
They're totally
There's-
forgettable.
There are zero
Yeah.
standouts in this
Yeah,
in this
it's-
whole entire soundtrack.
yeah, it's again, it's a confounding show. Like
Oh. You can take some comfort in knowing that it's almost over.
Man, if I ever step back into Japan and I have like I don't know, like some Japanese like anime sound producers listening to this, I'm gonna be shanked off the plane.
well, let's get.
All
Do we
right.
want into another show that is incomprehensible, but in an
Yeah,
understandable
let's-
way?
Mildly more entertaining manner.
Yes.
Let's get this also over with here.
Sakura Wars, the animation.
What's the latest with
Sakura-
the
it
Sakura
like
Wars
finally got
anime?
some of the energy it should have had in episode 1.
Yep.
Like, oh no, the villain has kidnapped our MacGuffin girl, and so we need to go after her. But he's got everyone a nuke point, and so let's bust out the building-sized crossbow to shoot our mechs at his base.
Okay.
It's so good. It's so good. Like they're like, oh, how could we possibly reach his airship? Our mechs can't fly.
Oh, we built this
And the
big
mechanic-
crossbow.
And the mechanic dude's like, don't worry, dog. I built a football field-sized crossbow. It's like at first they're like, oh, some kind of like catapult to launch them. It's a crossbow, literally a crossbow. It has the cables on the side that pull back. It's
Right,
absurd.
it's not even
That's
a manipul. Like, it's just a fucking crossbow.
that's not how physics works, but it doesn't matter. It's great. But and the fight's pretty good too. You know, like they set up the mechs right.
Sakura's mech got blown up when they failed to save the MacGuffin girl. So they have to bust out the like OG Sakura Wars mech.
It's so good. It's the thing you want. It's the thing
yeah.
you always want to see in these kind of shows, right? In any legacy mecha show, nothing is more satisfying than when they break out the museum piece. And
This is like Yatterman Knight playing the OP in the final episode.
yeah, it's exactly that kind of shit,
Not
right?
as
Like
good.
they bust out the old school mech from Sakura Wars 1. There's even a bit where like the character from Sakura Wars 1 has a flashback to the original Sakura because she's like, the countenance of this Sakura, it's just like the Sakura I knew. And it's like, they're leaning into all that good like 90s anime mecha schlock. And like there's a great part where it's the old museum piece, and it's like, you're pushing it too hard, it's overheating, right? Like, and of course at the and it breaks down because just she's fighting too hard with the old museum piece, right? And then the mission control's like, they're like, it's time to use the prototype. And, they're like, ma'am, the prototype, you can't mean the prototype, it's not done.
It might drain all of her spirit power.
Right, we haven't finished testing. And they're like, it's like, it doesn't matter, we have to save Tokyo or whatever. And so they launched that with the same catapult at the ship again. And, she gets into that one.
The lamer looking mech.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, the super prototype looks even lamer than the OG, like, Sakura Wars. Like, I love the OG Sakura Wars mechs. They're... Like, I'm not usually a big fan of steampunk, but I love their design. I think that the modern Sakura Wars mechs they're okay, but they're a little too, like, modern anime vibe. But, so, yeah, the new prototype itself kind of sucks, but, she gets into it and she does the classic, like, like...
and 5 guys explode.
Right, and or it's like it's not turning on yet because it needs so much spirit energy to power up, right? Like
They're
by the
really
way,
checking all the boxes.
Yeah. Like by the way, these
right?
mechs need spirit energy. I'm
the
sure
whole
you know this,
fucking
Jill,
show,
as someone who's
Yes,
played the game.
that much I know.
And so she's like, "Obu, please hear my cry," and the eye flashes like boing. It's like, it's so good. And here's the problem though, right? Like
Took 10 episodes.
it's episode 10, dog. We suffered through 9 episodes of this shit to finally get here. It's a little too late, and we're having a good time, but like it's just in a lot of ways. Again, Jill, we're gonna maybe one of these days we need to get you and Chris on the same podcast so we can just
maybe someday I'll actually play the game.
We can interrogate you about this game, but like. At least for us who watch the anime, it continues to be kind of the problem with the identity of modern Sakura Wars, which is
like Meyer. Or go ahead.
Oh, I was just like, it's this beloved, long-standing '90s anime franchise, right? But it just takes itself a little bit too seriously most of the time.
It's like they're afraid to go for the same vibe, almost.
Yeah, like. It's almost like they're afraid of being that goofy when like
the goofy is what would sell us on it.
Exactly.
Right, when you just shot 6 robots with a giant crossbow into space or something.
Right, like you felt like you need to build up to this like level of schlock when this level of schlock should be your baseline.
Yeah, it's
right.
And again, maybe that's being nitpicky, but it's just. It's one of those things of like we're having a pretty good time with it now, but like it's just a shame it took that long to build up.
Right.
But
well, at least you got some payoff out of it, right? Like it could have been worse.
Yeah, we could have gotten no payoff like in Sing Yesterday for Me.
There's a transition.
Zing.
Oh man, shots fired.
Ooh. So yeah, Sing Yesterday for Me.
Continues to be what it is.
Artemis, did you officially drop it since last time we talked?
Me?
Or have you?
No, I'm still going.
You're still going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Nobody in this show deserves
man.
anybody else in this show. Maybe Crow Girl, but also I don't understand why she likes the dude, so...
I don't understand why anyone likes anyone.
Right.
Like,
I can kind of get safety for the kid, but also that's an unhealthy fixation, dude.
That is a very unhealthy
she's
relationship.
Just encouraging, like...
Let me come to your house
Seemingly
on Christmas and cook you dinner, and then blue ball you.
and just unhealthy relationships like that, because the teacher is supposed to be like the mature one, right? She's supposed to be the one who's got her life together and makes like reasonably good decisions.
And then she's leading on 2 different guys.
She's like kind of the worst. She's just stringing people along, and then when it doesn't suit her anymore, stops and then picks up again because she decided actually no, she does want. Like,
Yep.
She's actually the worst character.
Yeah. Everybody's...
Shout out to the dude's friends who are a couple. He doesn't deserve them.
Yes, his friend and his friend's wife who are trying to help him out. And, right.
Set up... They're willing to have a Christmas party and invite one guy.
Right.
Wow, that's a really nice couple, because I feel
they're like, bring your girlfriend, bring the girl you like, man, it's cool.
The sacrifice
we're doing
their
our best to help you.
Yeah, I was
Christmas
gonna say,
Eve
man,
for,
man, I don't know if even I got friends that nice, like, that are in relationships, right? Like, you as a friend, you kind of get like, all right, man, my best bro wants to spend Christmas with his girlfriend. That's cool. I'll go drink or something. So like,
but when he and his girlfriend are like, we'll bring you along, and you're like, no, please
like,
stop.
Like being his wingman
with the express purpose of trying to
hook you up with someone else, with the
hook
girl
you
you
up
like.
with the girl you like or something. Yeah,
man, those people are saints. They sound like saints.
Yeah, I don't know what to say with this show anymore, guys.
It continues to be what it is.
I think so. I think I think what's going to happen, or what I hope happens, is they keep pushing main guy and teacher girl together, but every time they are like on the verge of actually hooking up, they both are almost like can't stand to be near each other. Which I'm debating whether their lack of romantic chemistry is bad writing or intentional. I want to think it's intentional, because I feel like what they're going to do is realize that that's not happening, and he's going to go after the crow girl.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them are spineless.
Yes. Well, and that's what she is like telling the guys, like, dude, you gave me the most half-assed Christmas present.
Right. Like, she keeps telling them basically, like, if you pushed any harder, I'd be up for it, but you aren't, and so I'm not.
Right, she's basically spelling out what he needs to do, and he's either not getting it or whatever. But I think, again, this is part of them just not having any chemistry as human beings. I mean, that's a thing that happens.
Right.
Like, you see somebody you think is attractive, they're a nice person, but like once you get down to the actually dating or something, it's like,
oh, I don't like this person at all.
We have no
chemistry.
But I don't think he should be going for one girl instead of another girl. I think all of them are terrible for each other.
Yes,
and they should go their separate
none of them
ways.
are in a position to have any kind of meaningful relationships in their life, to be honest. But, the fact that they are also leading on other people through all of this.
I think if this show ends with any like definitive coupling, he'll get with Crow Girl, but
I think that's the direction they're headed, but I don't know if they'll even go that far.
Right.
Like, they're at least going to swing the pendulum in that direction to try to, keep things interesting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But
maybe she'll get with Safekeeping Kid. I don't know.
That whole situation is just
mess.
It's
just not.
It's not okay.
It's just not appropriate.
it's not. It's not. And no one seems to realize it. Like no one is saying, like, the one time the teacher like is cooking and she has like an inner monologue where she's sort of, oh, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah, and I'm like,
come around here.
You're right.
And then she just continues doing it. Like, what?
I did think it was funny in the last bit when he was drawing her picture. He's like, "Oh, why don't you tug your shirt down a little to make it sexier?" And I'm like, that would be. And she's wearing like the thickest turtleneck I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like, How does that even work? But
I think he was just
but-
like making a bad joke, to be fair. But
right,
but,
yeah.
But yeah,
I
she gets
don't-
offended and goes off, but then continues making dinner for him like nothing ever happened. Like this is
right.
like
God,
completely
Kendra.
irresponsible thing for her, an adult woman, to be doing.
Yes.
Oh, but his brother.
And the anime is making it out, like I think anyway, the anime is making it out as though she is in the right, as though she is the mature one and is making correct decisions with her life and is, you know, the ideal match for whoever.
I don't think anybody in the show is making good decisions.
I don't either. I will say at least our main
the
character,
photographer guy that left for one episode, he made the right decision.
Yeah, at least our main character is now working in a photography studio instead of part-time in a convenience store, so that's
Sure,
like
something, I guess.
a thing that
Progress.
happened. But other than that,
Oh, what was up for that one scene in the cafe where the lady that runs the cafe or whatever just had some
I
guy
guess
come
she
in and
has
I had
her
no
own
idea who
stuff
he was.
going on. But
Was he supposed to be somebody we
I don't
know,
think so.
I don't.
or they have they just given up on like the anime viewers knowing what's going on or something?
I just assumed it was like her boyfriend or something.
Because the other thing is like a lot of the men in the show just all look the same anyway. I thought it was the main guy. I thought it was the main guy at first, and then like I had to like piece together. Oh, this is a different guy that knows this lady. and I have no
thought
idea
for a
who
second
he
it was
is.
the other photography guy, and then I realized it was not.
And it's just literally some guy we've never seen before that they felt was important enough to have that little
Like an old flame
scene
or
in
something.
there
Yeah.
that had nothing to do with anything going on. Like I don't know if that was like a shout out to people reading the manga or something. I don't
Or
know.
just the most unsubtle introduction of a new character ever.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I say every week, we're committed now though. It's no turning back.
Shall we move on to the other
We're only like halfway
Heavy
through,
sigh.
right?
Dysfunctional people.
Uh-huh. Are we as committed?
let's
as
talk another-
NRA
Talk
to
about
a
another
radio
show
career?
about dysfunctional people in their 20s. Wave Listen to Me.
Uh-huh.
We'll wrap things up with that. Artemis, did you watch it? Because you said you were.
I saw the first episode and it was okay. Like I can't it was fine.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean I know I should probably give it like more than one episode, and I might have, but also there was other stuff going on and I was just not in the mood, and then I just didn't.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, that's understandable. And as time goes on, I feel like this show may be an acquired taste more so than a show for everyone.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that. Like it's
Because I love it, but it's very.
Just want to see this person continuously fuck up their own life.
it has a very kind of intentionally abrasive personality. Like the show itself. Like
Yeah. I don't know how to. I don't really have anything to compare it to. It's very different.
Like we've watched a lot of anime about intentionally like bad dysfunctional people, but Wave is kind of unique in that regard, right?
It doesn't have like the same tone and presentation as your
Yeah.
typical anime comedy about this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like maybe it's just
And
like
there's just also just weird random things that happen too.
right. It
Are
definitely
difficult to process sometimes.
yeah, it definitely has a surreal streak sometimes too. But yeah, to kind of get into it, I think episode 9 and 10. I mean, kind of setting up what appears to be what will be like the, the closest thing the show has to a final arc, I guess. At least
Right.
for now with the anime.
Like, she met up with her old boyfriend who basically stole a bunch of money from her.
right.
Right. He was the subject of the original rant
Yes.
you see in episode 1.
The
right?
things that kick off the events of the anime
As
to begin
as a,
with.
like, and then they're using,
And also apparently the guy that was about to be murdered.
Yes,
on her
that's it,
first,
actually.
Yes, that too.
and they're gonna use, like, this as a basis for a live radio drama.
Yeah, and there's always some really good bits at the start, right? Where like, there's the bit where like Minare is googling how to purchase a gun in Japan, and
to kill
I'm
this
gonna fucking kill him.
asshole. Yeah.
yeah, and like asking to bring the recorder along so she can basically dox the guy, but but I think episode 9 is a really interesting example, I think, of intentionally putting the viewer in a really uncomfortable position right up until the moment where it's almost unbearable, and then gives you the payoff that makes that discomfort worth it.
Yes.
Because episode 9 is basically just like 15 minutes of Minari's ex just negging her. Like,
yeah.
So he comes back to try to meet up with her, and she agrees, and they kind of like go on a date or whatever.
He's a fucking scumbag.
Yeah, like,
you realize he's a scumbag, but she's kind of falling for it.
Yeah,
and you're like, no, don't do it. It's like a slow moving train wreck.
Right. Like you're so ready, like for better or worse, Wave is one of those shows where I don't have it's not a Kaguya-sama where I have rock solid confidence in it. Right, like there is a world where I could imagine, oh no, the final arc is like Minari gets screwed over by her ex again, and that's the plot development. But yeah, she just gets swept up in his pace, right? And in hindsight, now that we know what the payoff is, like I can sort of appreciate them kind of. I mean, maybe a little bit similar to Sing Yesterday, right? It kind of gets to this like, well, relationships are a little irrational, right? Like nobody can really,
right.
If everybody,
I mean, they get a little heavy in 10 when she starts talking about why she hooks up with helpless guys because she's afraid of not being needed or something like that.
Yeah, kind of gets into like some insecurities about herself, right? And like, a desire to feel needed. And it's like, this is all solid stuff. I think it's just that like episode...
They pushed it real close to the edge.
Like they really pushed it close. Like I was like, by the end of episode 9, I was really kind of like squirming a little bit. I was like, they got to turn this around eventually, right? Like, this is not going to be where this show goes. And, eventually we do get the payoff, and it's quite satisfying, It's where Minari kind of has her own bit of, like, self-actualization, where, she essentially clues in that, like, dude hasn't changed at all, right? Like, even in his attempts to make good to her, right? Even in his gestures to apologize for past ills, he is still
the same.
Yeah, he is still exploiting other women. He is still, being a shitty creep, right? And she eventually realizes that, and she's like, nah, I don't even care about the rest of the money. Like, just never speak to me ever again, basically.
Right.
Just kind of cuts things.
Of course,
things
like
off
the start
there.
of the next episode, she's like, "Oh God, maybe I went too far. Maybe he was genuine."
Right. I mean, yes, because it's Minari,
Yes.
Right? Of course, she second guesses herself.
Right.
Of course, she.
And that's when they start kind of playing into her insecurities and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10. I liked 9. But it was entirely based on how they decided to end the episode. If they had ended up together, I don't know if I would have kept watching the show.
I could have dropped the show right then and there if that's where it went.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They flipped it around and it was good. I enjoyed it. 10 was, how do we turn this into a radio show?
Right. I mean, 10 was basically, how do we turn your torment into entertainment, which is
bring in the Foley guys.
Yeah, I don't know. It did not feel like one of their stronger episodes to me, to be honest.
I mean, honestly, what it felt like to me is a setup episode, right?
Right. We spent way too much time with the sound effects guys, and I feel like that was just somebody wanting to nerd out about radio again.
I thought some of the Foley bits were kind of entertaining, but
it was kind of funny and interesting, some of it, but like
definitely stretched a little too long.
It was a little self-indulgent, I thought.
Yeah, I mean,
given the amount of screen time that it got.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main long-running bit, I think, with this episode was mostly just how do other people react to Minari's like struggles and misfortune, essentially, right? Like on the radio side, you have the producers like, this is good #content. Right. And then, on the restaurant side, right, you have Nakahara clearly being anguished by the fact that, I mean, there's a great bit, right, where like after she gives her whole speech about how she can't help but fall in love with helpless guys because she gets to coddle them, she asks Nakahara like, hey, a bunch of various questions, and it turns out that Nakahara is actually a pretty reliable, competent guy.
Right.
And
therefore, does not stand a chance.
Right, it just turns her off even more. Like poor dude is clearly like
doing his best.
Right, like, at first I was a little wary of Nakahara because of some of the shit in the earlier episodes, but, like, with the way he stands up for, like, the other girl at the restaurant in the prior episode, it's like, Nakahara seems like a fundamentally decent guy, just a little bit of a schmuck, but, like, otherwise he means well, and he seems like a decent guy, but by that very nature, that makes him overqualified for Minare, I guess.
Did I understand correctly? They had her record that whole thing just to synthesize her boyfriend's voice.
That sounds
Like
like
the
it. Yeah.
Vocaloid of her boyfriend.
that was our dose of weird this week.
Yeah, that was maybe the most fucked up thing that happened.
Where you
this
thought they
week.
were just going to take that conversation and like condense it down to the radio show, which would have been fine. But no, we're going to use that to get these old guys who somehow know how to do this advanced sound technology to synthesize your boyfriend's voice and create a completely different radio drama thing. I don't know if it's gonna. Are they going like a zombie thing or something? I don't know.
I feel like they're going with like a horror vibe, right?
A horror thing.
Like there are a lot of horror stories, right? About like someone kills their spouse and then they keep seeing visions of their spouse haunting them later, right? Like that's kind of like a classic horror trope, and I think that's where they're kind of going with this, right? Like.
Right.
The radio drama they're doing of her murdering and burying her ex, which real curious how this one turns out. I feel like in the past Wave did a pretty good job of keeping the radio bits interesting and entertaining, like not just for like her audience, but us, we the audience, and yeah, I'm curious what they'll do with this one, because
we don't really see a whole lot of it this week, so that's going to be next week's.
Yeah, that's what I assume.
Thing. I don't know. I feel like maybe they didn't need an entire episode to set this up.
Yeah. I wonder if this is one of those cases of like, because it's an ongoing manga, like, is this
they
just
have to pace things out for the timing?
Is this just one of those classic situations of like, well, this is too long for this arc, but like we can't fit the next arc in, so I guess we just kind of have to make this work somehow, and sometimes that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and I don't know at what point you stop this show.
Right, that's the other thing. I
guess you could stop it anywhere, but it is like in a like kind of thematically satisfying point.
Yeah, because the more I thought about it, I was like, in a weird ways, like, across this whole core, I feel like I haven't really gotten to know the cast as well as I would like, right? Like, I feel like I totally have the appetite for another 12 episodes of Wave, because, they do a good...
There's a lot of angles left to explore.
Like, they do
and
enough...
we're not going to get them in 2 episodes.
Right, like, they do enough with the cast. It's a pretty big cast, but they do a pretty good job of juggling it, and I think they do a good enough job of leaving just enough plot threads for me to be like, oh, where does that go? Or what's this relationship dynamic like? And, like, even just like what we have now, right? Like, you have, Nakahara and the girl at the restaurant, and then her weirdo cult brother, and then you have the sound engineer who's clearly like, got the hots for Mizuho, who in turn seems to have the hots for a guy twice her age. Is that what they're going with, where they're going with that? I don't know.
Is that where they're going with that?
I don't know. She seems like weirdly into the old
Vapor
writer guy.
Vape man.
Yeah. And
he might be 3 times her age, but
yeah. I don't. Yeah, that gets really weird the more you think about it.
Yeah.
But just there are point is there are enough characters that haven't been explored yet, right? Like, they introduced her really early on, but like the daytime host or whatever, or like the primetime host who showed up for like 1 episode, and she shows up in the ED, but that's about it. Like, there's enough material here that I certainly would love to see a second season. So.
Yeah, I mean, it took so long to get the show off the actual radio show going.
Right.
Like, it's in the first episode, but that's really the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And then we
It's only been on
go all
radio
the way back
like
to the start.
3 times. Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot to keep going, so it's kind of hard to see what they're going to do with 2 episodes left that's going to be, like, satisfying. Or are we just going to be left hanging wondering, I mean, if I were a betting man, I would bet against another season of this show happening.
Really? Yeah.
I feel like this is doomed to be the sell less than 300
man.
club.
Yeah, probably. It's... Yeah. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, this is like, again, this is the silver spoon of the Blade of the Immortal author, right? It's his like less popular follow-up work.
That takes place in Hokkaido.
Yeah, put this on the GLORIO cult list.
Yeah,
GLORIO cult favorite list.
Yeah, the only reason why I think it may have a chance is like, I don't know if it's actually true, but I get the vibe that this show might be sponsored by like, I don't know, the Hokkaido Board of Tourism or something. Like it feels
yes,
like
the all-powerful Hokkaido Board of Tourism.
Look, I'm just saying,
Municipal
like, there's
government.
enough, there's enough of like bits and pieces here and there where I'm like, you don't have to care this much about Hokkaido, but you're going the extra mile to like, portray it here and there, and I don't know, maybe there's some tourism board money involved. I mean, they did cast a Hokkaido born VA for Minare, right? So,
I mean, that might have been just enough to get the thing made in the first place.
yeah.
I don't know about ongoing seasons, but yeah. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the end? It would be kind of unfortunate for it to just kind of have a flat and the story goes on, but that's kind of all we have time for at this point, right? Like,
Yeah, probably.
I don't know what else they could possibly do, so... well, I mean, overall, it's still a net positive show. I wouldn't put it at the top of my list anymore like we were in the beginning of the season, but it's still good, and I appreciate it being unique.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, it's an acquired taste, but I think it definitely appeals to my sensibilities, personally, so...
I feel like pretty much every single show that we've watched this season, like that's still ongoing, we've all changed our minds on. Like back in Listeners episode 1, we were like, well, this seems promising. And
Yes.
and Thing yesterday for me was like, man, yeah, we really support the show, and you guys didn't even know what Kakushigoto was. And
I predict in our preview, I predicted Kakushigoto was going to be the worst show of the season.
yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And that did not. That was one of my worst predictions, I think, in the history of GLORIO. But yeah, yeah, no, you're right. Sing yesterday for me, I was pretty high on that.
I was
in the
too.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this for Wave. I think it's not that like we've turned against Wave. It's just like
Right.
It went from like maybe our personal highlight of the season to merely
Right.
pretty good.
Yeah, no, I still like it a lot. It's just my enthusiasm for it has dampened a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean like,
But it's still I still like it a lot.
definitely.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it then for this episode. We'll see everybody next time for summer previews.
Oh boy.
If I can decipher what shows are actually airing and what aren't.
Good luck with
Next
that.
season. It feels like things are starting to come back because I've seen some of like the postponed shows saying, okay, yes, we'll be back in July or
Super Sentai
whatever.
Kamen Rider are coming back in a couple weeks.
Yep, I'm looking forward to getting back on the No Guns Life train and catching up with Gundam Build Divers Re-Rise.
Oh god, right.
But for shows that should have been in production in the past 2 months, they're bound to be affected
Like
by
they
that.
started
So I think we're going
Digimon
to see a
like
lot
from
still.
the
I
beginning.
think a couple have said they're not coming back until sort of September.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it'll be it'll be interesting. I'll try to do my homework before next episode to kind of unravel what's happening and what isn't, because there are a lot of shows that were supposed to be happening, but obviously, that's not going to be the case. So we'll see. All right, so let's do our housekeeping. Check us out at theglorioblog.com. Follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, and YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll see everybody next time.